Testing, testing. Okay. Not for short people. Hey, Bill.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon, everyone. Already. Wait. Okay, welcome to the fall delegate out as a delegate a number of years ago and was asked to be on the board. My name is Bill Monahan. I'm the new steering committee president. We've gone through a lot in the last couple years. We have a lot to cover today. So I'd like to ask people online if you need the chat or some way to reach out to us. We're going to try to monitor that. Trying to kind of get a start on where we've been since we last met all in person. So to give delegates that are either new to us or haven't been around much, I'm going to try to make a brief overview of where we've been since, I guess, when we met last was, I think it was December for our holiday party. I think that was the last time we met in person. So I'm going to go with that. Back then, we had a couple of things going on. We were close to the interfaith initiative that was near its finalization and approval. We had a capital campaign in full swing. We had Reverend Phil's announcement of his retirement. We had his party, his celebration. And again, we had the capital campaign, which he initiated to really take us, again, probably further than we ever thought we would get at this point. The facility is in great shape. We are interfaith. We have new membership that proves it. And then not to mention all the challenges. And it's basically because of the staff that is on hand 24 hours a day. We have cars being driven into our buildings. We've had furnaces go in the middle of the night. We've had tenants with certain problems that we had to deal with. And again, if anybody's here wants to just quickly raise their hand and help me out at these different challenges, please feel free. I don't want to minimize any of these efforts that were made by not bringing them into light. Let's see. We had a search committee that was their organization that we got, ICON. They worked with ICON to help us to get our focus and our vision together, what we needed, with many different aspects of that search. My wife was on it. Tim Coombs was on it. There were a lot of people that were very dedicated to that and meeting at least once or twice a week. Then we had the pandemic, as we all know, and that is something that, again, it's a testament to the staff and the way they're able to pivot and to reorganize, and with Chef Tom just always making things happen. There was no plan. Everything was a plan A with these guys, and they were able to make it a plan A, like it was it was made to happen, and they made everything happen. Mass food distribution we did. Again, we had challenges like to the structure and the ongoing construction that was going on at the same time. Summer lunches, again, mass food distribution. And then George Floyd happened. At that point, our organization flew into action. There was a deep sense of urgency that everyone that started that committee just couldn't believe where we were and knew that we had a purpose and we had to organize and stay organized and identify things that were going to make a change. One of the big things I think personally was to try to get voter registration. I think that was something that I'm proud of, what we've done, and we've now become, that's another feather in our cap as far as what we're able to do, and we're a source now for getting people involved. After a lot of hard work, the steering committee made a few recommendations, and then we ended up with Amaury. And his vision is something that, and his energy is something that we are so lucky to have. It was a blessing. I mean, it was everything, and what I think is he does, we were in the steps of doing. We were getting those things all in place for him, and it was just like the perfect meeting of what we needed, what we had to give, and his skill sets. And it's not a skill set, they're gifts. So I want to thank the search committee again. A lot of exciting things. Amaury's going to, help us. He's going to really kind of introduce a lot of that he's been working on. Some changes that we've gone through. There's something exciting. We're having a communication audit, and that is something that is, I think, every organization should do it. Like they audit their books. They should do a communication audit at least once every year or two. And the way that we got the funds, it was all just, again, it happened. It was a gift from above as far as how that communication audit is going to happen. So. One of the things I'd like to kind of cover is one of my priorities in that communication audit is something that's always been an idea. I'm an idea guy. I try to come up with different things all the time on kind of make my wife crazy. But one of the things I think delegates need is a toolkit or a vision of SiCM, what we're able to do, and get their congregation involved. And we have so many things that we're able to do, and so many programs to offer our congregations and our faith communities. And whether it's social justice and using us as either a model or invite us into your congregations to learn and we have programs that we've done. We have very gifted people that are on this social justice committee that have programs that we would love to get into the different communities that are part of our organization. So a little toolkit as far as what we're doing on an ongoing basis, or have somebody come out and speak to your congregation and your faith communities. Those are the kind of things I think are exciting. And then lastly, I'd like to just cover briefly what Amaury is, I think, as far as what he's doing right now and what he's able to accomplish in such a short time. He's given some structure and some programs, and he's organized, basically, our steering committee is organized into four. All of us are involved in 4 different committees as well as the steering committee. So we're going to meet alternately every other month. But the 4 committees are the executive committee, we have a communication committee, and then we have the social justice committee. And we're going to be basically concentrating on those 4 committees, and then taking their recommendations and trying to get everybody else in SiCM involved. All right, let me stop rattling on. I'd like to invite Tim to come forward, please. maybe I should have, and we're gonna welcome Tim.
Yep.
And as he welcomes us to his facility. Also, Tim put this whole Zoom meeting together for us. We were kind of mixed on what to do in person, and
Great. Well,
thank you, I'm sorry.
glad to have you all here. Welcome to Trinity Presbyterian Church. We were blessed right as the pandemic started. A young person, well, not young, he's a friend of my oldest son, was beginning a company called Dream Labs, and he outfitted us with all live streaming equipment, and we got convinced that we should purchase it, and so we did. And so we've been doing this, well, almost since the beginning of the pandemic. For those who are here, our bathrooms are out the double doors, and then you'll see them to the right. We are here at Trinity are involved in a sermon series, as the pledge campaign, as many churches are involved in right now. Our theme is abundance. The feeling is with the pandemic that churches are experiencing declines in all sorts of ways, but if we look around, there's plenty of abundance around us, as you know, Bill was already saying, and part of that this morning was our first lesson was, on our worship, was Psalm 145, which is kind of a neat psalm because if you look into Hebrew, each verse of the psalm begins with a progressing letter of the Hebrew alphabet. So the first line begins with Aleph, which is kind of like their A, then Beit, which is their B, and Gamma, not Gamma, Gimel, and so on. So it goes like A, B, C, D, E, F, G, all the way down. There are 13 verses, so if we were doing it in English, it would be from A through M. And so part of our children's sermon, we were just sort of brainstorming things that we are grateful for God, since it's a psalm of praise for all God's benefits. So for the letter A, we came up with the words abundance, and a kid said apples, so I just wrote abundance of apples. B, we got a brotherhood, and then someone said bananas, so I said brotherhood of bananas, so we're just having some fun. Creation, donuts, dancing, devotion, and so this is a good thing to do, just a helpful exercise. Put down the letters of the alphabet on one side, and for each letter, put something that you are grateful for that God has provided for us. It's good to begin each day with a degree of gratitude. And there are so many blessings that the Schenectady Community Ministries have given to all of us as it gives out into the community, and we are so grateful to be a part of this great ministry. Let us begin with a word of prayer. Lord, we thank you for all the gifts that you have bestowed upon us, the world around us, the air we breathe, the water that we drink, the food that fills our bellies, for the community around us, particularly now this interfaith community, which comes at us with all different resources and all different points of view to help the people of this great city. And so as we come together, inspire us, invigorate us, give us vision for tomorrow. We give you thanks. Amen.
Okay, let's get on with the program. And at this point, I'd like Maury to come up, please.
Good afternoon, everybody. It's good to be in assembly and begin sharing a bit of what has been going on. We are gathering through 6 o'clock. We may end up earlier than that, and that's okay. If we do so, one of the shifts that we are trying to accomplish in the way and the purposes of assembly is that it's not simply a gathering of delegates of member faith communities receiving reports, but trying to get delegates' input in everything that we are doing, right? And we will do that in the breakouts, and I hope that in the agenda you see at the sum of how we're going to be engaging in that work, receiving some initial ideas of things that are going on or things that will happen in the future, and beginning to figure out how those connect with your passions as delegates, but also around the things that your faith communities are engaging or seeking to engage with. It's also the first time, as we heard President Monahan say, that we are gathering in person after two very important decisions of this organization and actually of this assembly. One was to become formally an interfaith organization, right? And one of the ways in which we need to begin to live into that identity as an interfaith organization is to share with each other as closely as we are able. There are about 13 of us here on campus of Trinity Presbyterian Church. There are about a dozen people online, and I suspect that there will be at the more joining, and we will figure out in person and virtually so that everybody can participate however they're comfortable, but also can actively participate, right? How we are going to do these things. So especially for those that are tuning in through the YouTube live stream, we will be live streaming the plenary sessions, this one and the one that will come after the breakouts. But you should have received a Zoom link and Zoom information, which we will open as soon as we break out here on site. And we will figure that out and engage in conversation. But before we go to the breakouts, let me give you a snapshot, shy of a report, of the many things that have been going on since we last met in assembly in June, and some of it will begin encouraging our conversation. I want to divide this report in 5 sections, and if you are one of those, like my mother, who will have a notebook open, and half the people in this room are, do take notes, absolutely. It's being recorded, so you can actually go back to it whenever you want. Following Bill Monahan's at the prompt and some of the discussions that we've already had in the steering committee, we will be gathering my report, the notes that our president gave us as he opened the meeting, and a lot of the feedback that we'll be getting from the breakouts in a document by Wednesday. So if you still need to write down, because I was one of those that needed to write notes when I was in school to remember stuff, absolutely do that. Otherwise, know that for everybody that registered for this meeting, you will be getting as concise as possible a document. So you can share it for yourselves in the work that you're doing and also for your member faith communities as you're engaging with them. The first part of this report is on operations update, and I want to begin that with an exercise. Those of you that are here and those of you that are online, for those that are online, it'll be perhaps easier. If you can open a browser, for those of you that are on camera, for those that are here, if you can pick up your favorite electronic apparatus, and as you're opening your favorite mobile apparatus or your browser over online, social media venue, whether that's Facebook or Instagram or Twitter, and that's as far as we go. One of those three, and when you have it open, whether it's on an app on your mobile apparatus or on your web browser, those of you that are here, if you can do some signal that you have it open. Yes, good. If you could write either the @ symbol with SiCMNY, at SiCMNY, or type Schenectady Community Ministries in the search bar of your app or on the browser on your favorite social media venue, the Schenectady Community Ministries should pop up, and you'll be able to check one of two things. One, that you're either following or liking, depending on the social media platform that you're in, Schenectady Community Ministries, or that you're not. And if you are not, may I encourage you to click that like button or that follow button, and that will significantly help us increase our output of information to you and to your networks. And not that I'm going to ask you to do that right now, but if you can do that on your other not so much favorite social media platforms, whether that's Twitter or Instagram or Facebook, you will find us at SiCMNY or reaching us as Schenectady Community Ministries, and we will truly appreciate that. Our social media platforms are much active on Facebook and Instagram, and we want you to be engaging with us and sharing that with your network. Annual report came out early in the summer, and that's available online. If you go to our website, sicm.us/2020-annual-report. Don't worry about writing all that down. You'll have it with you by Wednesday. You can access our annual report. There are also plenty printed for you guys. Many of you should have received that in the mail already anyway. If you think either for your networks or for your member faith communities, you want some of those copies, it's a matter of sending us an email. We'll make sure you get photocopies of it. Otherwise, the full report is online, and I encourage you not only to access it and read it and see it, but share it with folks. A lot of the people that we want to recruit as volunteers and recruit as donors, the first question is, so what do you do? And this 2020 report might be the easiest way to give a quick snapshot and good detailed information about what happened in 2020 and some of the things that we are currently doing in fiscal year 2021. The fall 2021 newsletter is also out. It's already out in the mail, so you should expect to receive that in the mail this week or early the next. Whether you pray or think or encourage spiritually your thoughts, let's join in encouraging our fellow workers in the United States Postal Service. They're working hard, and many of the lack of resources have nothing to do with the people that are working there, but people that direct those that are working. So please be patient with our good USPS folk, and you will be getting the newsletter soon. It will be online next week, and by the time you receive these sets of reports by Wednesday, you can access that also. I commend it's somewhat revised some of the things that we have been doing in the past, and I've actually enjoyed joining fellow staff members and volunteers in writing a lot of that information that you will see there. So you should find that soon in your mail or in your inboxes. Second section is around the grand opening events that took place between September and October. Mid-September, we hosted our second fall festival. It's our way of making some funds that the state make available to organizations like ours in making sure that we provide hyper-local, high-quality produce to people that we serve. And we were able to host 4 farms, including Schenectady Urban Farms. In that engagement, we served over 100 households that day, and we're glad for that. And about half a dozen community organizations were present sharing information with the folks that were there. That followed with the pantry naming that took place on the 15th of October. Among the speakers were colleagues of ours, Matt Cutler of Congregation Gates of Heaven and Jeremiah Lennox of the Nemeton of the Ways. Shirley Redeen, Rachel Curtis, and Bill Monahan of our board also spoke. Pat Obrecht, who many of you would know as a former manager of the Pantry, shared some of her thoughts around her work with Phil. Peter Carmen, a former board member and a religious leader in Schenectady City, also spoke. Councilwoman Marion Porterfield and Assemblyman Angelo Santa Barbara were present and also shared some thoughts. And we finally heard from Jan Grigsby, Phil Grigsby's wife. I have been sharing with some of you at one-on-one that to my detriment, I continue to underestimate the power of the stories that Schenectady Community Ministries as an organization and the work that Phil Grigsby led for 33 years has in this city and this county. There were over 50 people that showed up. It was standing room only. What was supposed to be a 30-minute event turned out to be about an hour event, and people were engaged and people were thankful. So now our food pantry is called the Reverend Phil Food Pantry, and we are glad that we're able to continue to live up to the things that Phil taught us. Quoting Shirley Redeen, Phil taught us how work of community helping community looks like. And that is what we're committed to continue to do as we continue to build upon Phil's 33-year legacy in Schenectady City, Schenectady County, and through SiCM. Council members that were present, including Marion Porterville, like I said, and Carmel Patrick, County Legislature Michelle Osterlich, members of the City Board of Education, Kathy Lewis, our president, and Jamaica Miles were there as well. Chief Clifford and his staff on community outreach were present, and a plethora of community leaders and social activists were there. That event at 3 o'clock followed in the early evening with a cultivation and fundraiser showcasing our community hub. There were over 40 persons registered with an attendance of close to 50, including staff and board members that were present in the event. Leaders of sister not-for-profit organizations were there, and I want to highlight the presence of colleagues from Habitat of Humanity in Schenectady and from the Troy Area United Ministry. Judge Tenica Frost of the Schenectady City Court, County Legislator Philip Fields were there, and Congressman Tonko also honored us with his presence and being one of the speakers for the evening. And again, a plethora of community leaders, leaders of member faith communities, volunteers, and supporters that share in our work were present in what turned out to be a very special and very active evening. Support all of this was the effort of the staff, and the staff outdid themselves in organizing these three events, both in the work that they did and the connections they facilitated to make sure that everything not only ran seamlessly, but everything was available that we wanted to make these events enjoyable and significant. We also had significant corporate sponsorship of these events, and I want to highlight three of them. For the Fall Festival, I want to recognize Stewart's, who provided ice cream. It's becoming a thing that Stewart's provide ice cream, and for that event particularly, people are already looking forward to the apple and pumpkin ice cream, and it was a hit, and we want to thank Stewart's for their support. Hudson Harvest, who we are a client of, also provided a significant plethora of produce and products that were handed out. And the Niskayuna Co-op provided us on the 15th with beverages to serve, and we're thankful for that. And those are only some of the many corporate and individual sponsors that helped us. And I want to close this section with a challenge that came from staff and the board took on. As we're planning for this event, some on staff approached me and said, so I want to donate. Can we do something more special than simply donating on behalf of staff? And I said, let's do a match challenge. It started with the staff. I shared it with the board. The board came in to also build that pile of money for the match. The match that went out that evening of the 15th was for $3,850, all put together by staff and the board. And the reason why I want to highlight that is that it's not only the work that the staff do, and we may pay the staff for the work that they do, but it's not only what we pay, it's what they bring, their passion and their know-how of everything we're able to do with and on behalf of this community. They also brought what they had in this important fundraiser. And assembly to build on that match. By the 31st of October, we're going to be sharing information about the match. If we're able to complete the match and adding some of the money that we fundraised right before the event, we could hit this fall events to a fundraising opportunity of upwards of $12,000. But it will take some push from everybody who's here, everybody who's tuning in and sharing this idea with everybody that are on our network. So I invite everybody here and everybody online to do that themselves and to invite others in one of three ways, right? Or a combination thereof. You can very find us at SiCM at SiCM on your Venmo app, and you can donate. Donate online as SiCM.us/donate. Go to our website, SiCM.us. You can find the donate button, or go straight to SiCM.us /donate, or you can mail your check to P.O. Box 1049, Schenectady, New York, 12301. That's P.O. Box 1049, Schenectady, New York, 12301. Help us make that match, and help us recognize our staff's ability and challenge to you to make sure that this work continues to happen. The third part of my report, I want to focus it on major grants. We are celebrating because Schenectady Community Ministries, in partnership with several organizations, were granted a $100,300 grant on food access that was put out by the Schenectady Foundation. We are going to be working with Schenectady ARC, with the Cornell Extension, and with the school district through the 21st Century Program around the work. Okay. You tell me. Put it on. No problem. There you go. And there you go. And hopefully you'll hear me. Thank you. And we're going to be working together, following 30 families throughout Schenectady City and the county, to begin figuring out not only ways of making access to food easier for those who are in need, but to also begin to define what are the reasons why many in our community are food insecure. I'm not going to go into the numbers of the amount of people we serve, because it's in multiple documents, and many of you already know those numbers. But the need is here, and the need is much more permanent than any one of us want it to be. We need to start figuring out what are the root causes for food access to be an issue particularly, but for poverty to be such a significant thing throughout Schenectady County in the work that we are doing. We're also celebrating that through the leadership of Assemblyman Phil Steck, we will be receiving $25,000 to support the summer meals program, and that we received a $20,000 anonymous gift. And that's about what I can say, other than, like you heard earlier from Bill Monahan, we are beginning a process on a communications audit that is eventually going to turn into a new communications infrastructure, out of the assumption that there are stories and opportunities that we could be communicating more widely through our network, but also to the community that we serve. That is going to turn also into a new fundraising infrastructure. And we needed some money to begin that consultation. And I've told some of you, something was hearing in Joanne's office when she and I were trying to figure out how we were going to pay for this first part of the audit. 2 days later, this check lands on our desks, and we are thankful for that we're able to continue to do significant work that we are doing without having to go into our operating budget and work and move this very important, high-level but significant work that we need to be doing around our communications infrastructure and our development infrastructure. I also want to share that we're going for funds. Of course, it's the work that I do on your behalf as Chief Executive Officer, but it's also the work that all managers in the organization do. When we repurposed and redid the staffing structure, one of the things that all managers and directors committed to, and I call them to, is that we all are doing development and relations work, right? So we're going for funding. We're going for $35,000 from the United Way of the Greater Capital Region, supporting a partnership that we're developing now, beginning to develop with the Schenectady City School District, and those of you that will be in the breakout around that with Tom and Joanne will hear more about that. We are beginning some research, and I'm sorry I'm using the term twice. We're doing some research around research grants. Like I said earlier, we don't only want to be serving folks to bridge gaps around their needs. We want to begin understanding why is it that these needs exist, right? And we're going to be going for some research grants that we're in conversation with local philanthropists to do some of that work, but also through the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation, we want to do that. We are beginning plans on expanding our pantry operation, and again, you hear some of that in some of the breakouts. Expansion also on the pantry, on community farming, and on composting, and we will be talking to the United Way of the Greater Capital Region, the Cabrini Health Foundation, and others to support that, and more locally with the Schenectady Foundation and Community Development Block Grants of the city to figure out with some of the research that we're beginning to do and that we might be able to do if we are able to find some grants, some funding in order to make some of these expansions more permanent in the work that we are doing. And we're also going to be engaging with member faith communities around fundraising. Member faith communities do 3 important things for Schenectady Community Ministries. In spaces like this one, you help us discern our work forward. Through your networks, you help us recruit volunteers, which is a significant part of the work that we are doing. You're also important networks around fundraising, both in the funds that many of you or your congregations dedicate for social justice work, but also in other contacts that you have. And I'm looking forward to having conversations with each one of your member faith communities in order to understand how can SiCM better partner with each one of you, not only in funding, but also in volunteers and in a lot of the work that we are wanting to do. On partnerships, let me highlight 5 of those. Healthy Living 360 is that Schenectady Foundation grant that I mentioned earlier, and we're looking forward to beginning that work this week. We're going to have our first meeting of the partnership. We are beginning conversation with the Schenectady City School District, like I said, on making pantry services available to every elementary school. And as overwhelming as that sounds, what I need you to do in the response to that being overwhelmed is how can I support that work in volunteer time and also in fundraising. In the meantime, Tom Schofield, who is our Food Justice Initiatives and Pantry Operations Manager, is beginning to have conversations with the King Elementary School on Hamilton Hill to begin piloting how some of this work can look like and how can we better and more efficiently deploy, making food access not the issue for each one of the students in the city school district. And once we have that, we're also looking forward eventually to having similar conversations with school districts throughout the county, right? But we're beginning with the city, we're beginning with the MLK school, and we will have some more information about that very soon. We are partnering now formally. We have been doing this somewhat ad hoc, but we're formally partnering with the Habitat for Humanity of Schenectady in making sure that once a house is built and handed over to their new owner, a full set of groceries is made available to that family and that they know how to contact us through email and a call. We are also beginning conversations with the YWCA of Northeast New York to see how SiCM can be the food provider for all the residents in their shelters, right? That we are able to provide food to every resident in Schenectady County. We want to make sure that the YWCA continues to do the advocacy and safety work for women that they are known to do. We can take care of the food part of that work. And that's a partnership that we think is going to grow and is significant. In having conversations with Kim Siciliano, my colleague over at the YW, they are buying a new building, significantly expanding their shelter operation, but even as they're expanding, they're already at 99% capacity, right? And there's a waiting list of months in the work that they're doing. So the need is there, the opportunity to make sure that both of our organizations' dollars stretch in that we're able to do food and they're able to do safety and advocacy for women, but that these women and their families know the community is caring for you, right? It's going to be an important part of the partnership that the YWCA and SiCM are going to begin to plan. And the last bit of this on partnerships is that we are beginning to do some outreach with area food pantries, especially in Schenectady City, for folks to meet who do similar work, to create the spaces to share stories on best practices and others, and also to share some of the ways in which SiCM has been able to significantly increase the quality of food that we're serving our guests, and ways in which we should be partnering with smaller pantries in making sure that they are also significantly increasing the quality of food that they are serving. And there will be more about that very soon. And I'll end this part with some thoughts on engagement with member faith communities and the community at large. On September 22nd at the Vale Farm, we were able to host our first fall blessing that was presided by Jeremiah Lennox, who is the druid and leader of the Nemeton of the Mother Grove, which is one of our new member faith communities. 21 people showed up to that celebration. Farm members, volunteers, faith leaders from our network participated in that, and we're looking forward in our farms and in other spaces that we're able to participate to hosting blessings in every season. I have visited with 11 of our member faith communities, including preaching or sharing in religious teaching at First Reformed, Messiah Lutheran, First Methodist, Trinity Presbyterian, St. Joseph's Episcopal, and also joining for Rosh Hashanah at both Congregation Gates of Heaven and Congregation Agudat Hakim. It was beautiful experiences that I have had. I am open to visiting your faith community. I'm only an email away, and I look forward to doing that in the near future. We, and I should say we, because staff and volunteers that were present there, also joined Congregation Agudat Hakim's 2021 Carrot Festival. Because it's my first time in Schenectady, people told me you need to get early because the event is a thing, carrots are a thing, and carrot cakes are a thing. It may go to no surprise to anybody that the carrot cakes were gone by noon, right? And I think I can say that I happily was able to get the last cake. I think that's true. And that Congregation Gates of Heaven needs to figure out how to make more carrot cake available on the day. It was a phenomenal event. It was also a capstone for Congregation Agudat Hakim in that they had dedicated their holiday food drive to SiCM. And we were able to have a ceremony in which they had to hand it off at some of that, and we're already in receipt for a lot of their generosity for our pantry. This summer, Schenectady Community Ministries, leading the county-wide summer meals program, served upwards of 57,000 meals in breakfast and lunches on 32 sites in Schenectady City, in Scotia, Rotterdam, and Niskayuna. This work was possible because of 16 staff, most of them come to us as summer staff, the work of over 170 volunteers at the on-site and also on these 32 sites where we're giving out food, the generous financial contribution of many member faith communities and organizations throughout the capital region. And we are beginning to get ready for the 2022 program. Joanna and I were able to participate last Friday, and there was an article in the Times Union around that meeting that happened at the United Way in Albany. But not only the number is impressive, 57,000, SiCM represents 1/5 of the meals handed out throughout the capital region. SiCM alone represents 1/5 of all the meals that we're giving out in the summer. We have been doing this for 27 years. And we will continue to do this. But it's something that I think it's important for us to acknowledge. I want to say celebrate, but definitely acknowledge, right? As yet another witness that the pervasiveness of poverty is so deep in our communities that we're able to give this amount of food and understand that we're still scratching the surface of the needs that exist throughout Schenectady City and Schenectady County. So as we continue to plan for 2022 and individuals and member faith communities begin thinking around volunteer work and around financial work, there is much more work that needs to get done. And we, because we're a collaborative, SiCM is, want to make sure that we're pulling our resources together to make this happen. I have been actively participating in Schenectady Clergy Against Hate. I've also began meeting with Engage Schenectady, which is a group of more evangelical leaders on Hamilton Hill and Mount Pleasant that wants to expand to the whole city of Schenectady, and it's been a blessing also to be a part of that group. The Schenectady Foundation continues to gather One Schenectady, which is that initiative that happened after the pandemic happened, we're beginning to figure out both what we learned as the group of not-for-profits that responded to the emergency so that we can better work in new emergencies that might arise, but also understanding what are the more permanent issues post-pandemic that we're going to be dealing with. And I've also had the opportunity to visit and participate with the Schenectady Rotary, with Schenectady, with the Schenectady Equity in Education Coalition, with the Schenectady Interfaith Community, and soon I'll be visiting with the Scotia Glenville Rotary. So those are all networks that continue to be worked on, and the work that lies ahead. And that is only a snapshot of what has been happening June to here. And again, all of this is only possible because of the energy that you bring through your prayers and your good thoughts, through the resources that you share with us financially and through volunteers, and through the ideas that we're going to be discussing in the next few minutes in the breakout groups. So what I would like for us to do now for the next 20 minutes is to do breakouts, and there are going to be 3 breakouts. 2 of them will be here on site, and I'll encourage people to self-select in the groups. Led by Tom and Joanne, we're going to have a pantry operations breakout group, and we're going to be hearing a little bit again of what's been happening and things that are upcoming so we can gather some ideas. There's also going to be a farms at the breakout, and Melissa McKinnon is going to be leading that one. Things that are coming, things that have been happening in the farms, and gathering some ideas. And for those that are online, I just need a minute to go to my computer and start the Zoom meeting, and we're going to be meeting over Zoom. And we'll be discussing around social justice engagement, the word that this assembly has decided we need to begin embodying as an interfaith organization, and in words that I'm beginning to figure out in my head, not only being an organization in the community, but being an organization with the community. So that's the kind of conversation that we're going to be having. So everybody on site, Joanne and Tom, let's have you on this side, and you can move chairs as you wish. And the pantry conversation, the farms conversation, they will be on this side. Let's take 20 minutes, and folks online, you already have the meeting information. I'll open that meeting in a moment, and we'll reconvene at 5:10 in the plenary, in which we're going to be then receiving some of the thoughts that have happened. As we break out, 1, let's select somebody that can take notes and can report back, right? 2, let's hear the information that we're going to be receiving and answer 3 questions. What catches your enthusiasm or imagination of what you're hearing as an individual, as a delegate from your faith community, or even as you think of other networks in social work that you're engaged with? Are there any concerns in what you're hearing, and what those concerns are? As you answer that question, I encourage you just to share the concerns. For those of us that do governance at multiple levels, as we share concerns, we also want to share how to fix the concerns. Let's not get there yet, right? Let's take the time to have the conversation and share the concerns that we have, right? And as a last question, what suggestions or ideas do you have around discernment or planning, around implementation? And as you're answering that, in the spectrum of 1 being not relevant at all to 5, I'm fully on board with this idea. Let's also share how you feel these ideas are sounding to you, right? And let's break. Food pantry. Well, some will become pantries soon. Food pantry, farms, and I'll be with you in a minute.
While Amare is getting that ready, you might want to keep your window open to this YouTube, and so that you can come right back to it. Otherwise, you can still go back to the site and open it again and go to the Trinity page on YouTube, and it should be there. I'm not closing out the YouTube stream. It'll stay open. What you will see is this welcome sign. So we will see you in about 20 minutes.
I hope that every group elected a reporter. Good. And I hope I'm not calling Tim out of turn, but he may be the mic runner in a minute. So this is how we propose this experience to be. Everybody who took notes, everybody who took notes, especially those who were particularly elected to be note takers, can please send me your notes to ed@sicm.us. ed, for executive director, at SiCM.us. If there's anybody online who took, I took notes of our conversation, but if there's anybody that wants to share their notes with me, I'll appreciate it. Again, I'll compile those in a document so that everybody knows with more detail what was said in the breakouts. And I'll start as a way of starting. And in the social justice breakout, I asked two questions. One was, what are values in social justice that folks in the call saw were important for SiCM to bring to the fore and highlight? And the second question was, what are things, experiences, opportunities that SiCM should be thinking more readily to be doing with, for, on behalf, and/or alongside our member faith communities around issues of justice. So there were 5 values, and broken down in many ways, but I'm not going to get into those. But 5 major values in social justice work that SiCM should take on, and I'm glad to say that a lot of those we're already doing, but we will begin to distill those both in staff and in the board and in the work that this assembly does. Anti-racism, right? Both in SiCM, but also in the work that we're able to facilitate, again, in our services and in our engagements, especially anti-racism work that not only acknowledges that there are issues of racism that exist, but that we provide opportunities to grapple with the realities of white supremacy, right? That are all throughout our organization, all throughout the member faith communities that we're parts of, and certainly all throughout society. The second value is the inherent dignity of the individual, right? And following up with that, I want to be connecting with the leaders of the member faith communities because theologically, all of our faith communities, our members of SiCM, have a way of calling that in multiple ways. And it'll be important theologically to articulate what does the dignity of the individual mean, not only in the work that we do, but in the impetus that moves us forward. The third value is listening, as not only as an action, but as the modus operandi of how we engage each other in governance, each other in the work, and in the service that we provide. Compassion, justice, and equity, right? And that's another part where we can be talking to the leaders of our member faith communities in having the strong theological and ethical grounding that value calls us for. And fifth, that our work is not to direct people on what to do in order to be able to move away from whatever we think people should be doing, but work that encourages sovereignty and community building, right? Those are the main values, and there are many ideas that broke down in those. And again, whether it's on the chat, on YouTube, or you email that to me, other ways in which we talked about this, I would really appreciate that breakdown. What can SiCM be doing with, for, or on behalf of our member faith communities? There were 2 major suggestions. One is education. People were caught by the fact that, for instance, SiCM alone is 20% of the summer meals output of the capital region, right? So clearly, there is an understanding of our community and how poverty is pervasive, right? So there's an opportunity for SiCM to educate, not only in what we're doing, but how we're identifying
how the things that we do are effective in dealing with the pervasiveness of poverty in our communities. And two, through various networks, how do we connect with organizations like the Religious Action Center, right, in not only speaking into advocacy and policymaking, but also in ways to better implement policies that already exist at all levels, right, but certainly at the state level. On the pantry group, who took notes and was the person to report back? You want to come up, or you can speak from there. They'll hear you. The camera's over there. Thank you. And there it is.
Okay. I guess we're looking at, we were told about the different foundations and groups that SiCM is partnering, I mean, collaborating with. And then the pilot program that they want to expand food delivering from the pantry to the schools. And there was some ideas brought up, some questions about the backpack programs that are involved and how how that might affect the program that they're having in the schools. It's going to start with Martin Luther King School and maybe two or three other schools. We looked at what types of food that they already have in the schools. They have breakfasts and lunch, and looking at, I guess, possibly surveying or getting input from families and the children by way of survey to find out what type of foods that they eat, so things wouldn't be wasted if they're getting foods, and looking at where they would get the different foods that are going to be given to the families. Also giving more input to the families, or knowledge about the type of programs that SiCM has, so they might be able to get involved with some of those programs that would make them more self-sufficient, like the farms that are out there, so they can help grow their own food and be, like I said, more self-sufficient. I don't know if anyone else wants to comment on what else I might have missed that was said. But there's also food bank and grants. I guess the food bank and grants is where some of the backpack program gets their donations and stuff for food. I'm not sure where. Okay, that's about it.
Thank you. From the group that spoke about the farms, who's our designated reporter?
Thank you. I guess most of our conversation was about the programs that are, how the programs are, how they started, how the farming group came into SiCM, so it was a little overview that way. I guess we got an overview of the programs, the acreage. Most of the questions, I guess, were about future ideas of, I guess, how the kitchen's going to be involved. A lot of ideas talking about the kitchen, the canning. I guess with one of the things, I guess one of the ideas that we're looking to try to do is canning and utilizing or using more of what we get that might be seasonal or an abundance all at once, and try to
put that out. Anything else, Melissa, you want to? I don't really think there was much as far as discussion of more than, I'll give you what I'll tape that in, but that's all.
One thing that was discussed about, that Melissa brought out, was that having consistent times and places was really important, and that those times and places are, I guess, late. You can find out more about it at a website, but I don't know if there are any other options. She did talk about Seed to Supper program. That sounded interesting. And SchenectadyUrbanFarms.org is another website, I guess, you look at. And then at the very end, we were talking about needs versus classes and trying to mesh those two things together. And another thing that I brought up was whether or not there was a need for additional spaces. And she said there was concern that the city would give you a space for three years and then move you, and in my particular case, the church has a pretty large green space that we might be able to use. So those were a couple of.
I appreciate that. And see, this is where this collaborative is important in order to think through some of those. I'm not seeing any comments on the chat on YouTube. What's going to come next after this is the following. Again, I'm going to put this all together. There are teams that correspond more or less to the work that we have been discussing, and they're going to receive this data. And what I'm going to ask of each of those teams is to flesh out more information that we want to make sure you have as you continue to communicate the things that are happening and the things that we're growing into. And as part of that, an invitation for conversation, like I said earlier, not simply for me to visit with member faith communities, but an opportunity to speak more specifically with any of these areas that might be of interest to you. The board is also going to take some of these things on. Like Bill shared earlier, and we talked about at the June meeting of the Assembly, the board is meeting every month on the one at the given month. The steering committee will meet as a plenary. In the off month, the committees are going to be meeting by themselves. The November meeting are only committees that are going to be gathering, and they're going to be taking also this data and begin distilling. Know that each one of the committees of our board have already set some goals, and I am glad to report, I think I can say with certain confidence, that many of the things that have been said at this meeting already peg in some of the things that the steering committee have been talking to. What I want us all to understand around the relationship between our staff and the work that we do, our steering committee and the Assembly, is that the steering committee is your elected body, right, to set policy for the organization, but it is this group, it is the Assembly, not only our connection to the member faith communities, but the space where we can have broader discernment and high-level conversations about how all this translates in the work, in the meaning of the work that we do. That's why these spaces are important. And I want to thank everybody who is in this space and everybody who is still tuning in online for giving us your time. That is also why we move the assemblies from every month to quarterly, right? Like you heard in my report, and I'm going to read it once the document comes to you, there's a lot going on, right? But we want to make sure that your valuable time and your valuable ideas are used in ways, that can speak to your values as member faith communities, but to the work that you have sent us to do on your behalf. And the last thing that I'll say is just that. SiCM is not an organization that you simply support by electing officers once a year and maybe giving some money and maybe giving some, providing some volunteers. This is your organization. SiCM is a collaborative of member faith communities. And it is important for us to hear the voice, the intention, and the concerns of all of our member faith communities so that we can continue to be not only a food pantry, but your largest food pantry in Schenectady County, the summer meals operation for the whole county, 2 acres of urban farm that you work and support in, and also the best witness of each of our faith traditions in the work with and alongside everybody in Schenectady County. And I don't have anything else, Mr. President, and we may be ready to close, but it's your game now. Thank you, everybody.
Okay, and at this point, I'd like to get this wire off my head, but I guess it stays. Okay, I guess we're going to ask Tim to come back up and do a closing meditation and bring us to adjournment.
Thank you for coming out, for everybody online who was with us tonight. Very much appreciate that and all your ideas and inspiration. May we go forth now and do the work that has been set before us. May God bless us. May God inspire us. May God invigorate us forward in this ever-expanding and abundant ministry for us. Spirit, lighten our hearts as it lifts our spirits and reaches more and more people so that this city may become healthy and spiritually alive. Go forth in God's love.